Hello and welcome to week 14 of our ENGL 100 English Composition class. Congratulations on completing the major assignment of the semester, which was the research paper. It was due on Sunday. From reading your rough drafts, there were a lot of great topics this semester, and I'm looking forward to reviewing your final drafts this week. We only have 3 weeks of the class left. We're going to dedicate 2 of those to narration, and then the last one to kind of wrapping up and looking forward to your next classes and maybe a little grammar review as well. But for this week and next week, we're going to be looking at narration, which is the last writing mode that we're going to be reviewing this semester. Narration, I find to be a wonderful writing exercise. It's not something you necessarily do in a lot of classes in college, but some classes might ask you to create a narrative. Narratives are personal stories, and many times this semester I have instructed students to not use the I perspective, the personal perspective. I've written in comments, stay away from I statements in your academic writing or personal belief statements. But narratives are all about I and all about personal beliefs. So this is a time where you can use a personal story and you can use that I point of view. I just want to review a few things about narratives and then talk about what you're going to be doing this week. So narratives, like I said, are personal stories. They have a few rules, and this is all listed in the narrative section of our textbook Models for Writers. Narratives have a clear context. So when you're writing a narrative, you want to make sure you're telling the reader a general time frame. Did this happen last week? Did this happen 10 years ago? What time of year was it? What season was it? Even ideas about temperature or weather or climate. Those can all be part of that context that you create for the narrative. If you're going to do a story, if you're going to write a story that happens over many years, you're going to want to use a lot of context information just so the reader can follow the timeline of your story. This is one of my favorite parts of narratives. Well chosen and thoughtfully emphasized details. And there are a lot of great words to use when you're describing place, you're describing people, you're describing situations. And those details can be very, very memorable. We're going to be reading an essay this week called White Lies, and I think there are a number of great, vivid details in that story that I remember even to this day, having read it about 4 or 5 months ago, last semester. I can still remember those thoughtful details because they're so wonderfully used. Chronological order transitions. Now, transitions are words we know that get us from one paragraph to the next, from one idea to the next. Transitions for narratives are generally involve time. So first, then, next, finally. Last year, after that, then this. Those kinds of transition words are often used, and they help move the narrative along, and they help the reader follow the story. Think about the words you use when you're telling a story to a friend. We use these kind of transitions when we speak with other people. We need to bring them to our written narratives. Now, a consistent point of view. That point of view is going to be yours. It's that I perspective, the first person point of view. Generally, when you're writing a narrative, you're writing it about your experience, so you're going to be writing from I. And finally, and this is an important one, I think, a meaningful point or purpose. The story should reveal something important about life. And most great narratives, most great stories, generally stories that we tell our friends, have a point about something we went through, something we experienced, something we enjoyed, something we didn't like, something we learned. That's often a point of a narrative, is that the narrator learns something. So, those are the 5 different narrative goals. Now, this week you're going to be doing a couple things. You're going to be reading an essay called White Lies by Aaron Murphy. It's a handout, and there are, I think, 6 or 7 reading response questions. This is your last reading response assignment of the semester. Congratulations. You're also going to be listening or watching a narrative. There's a wonderful podcast out there called the Moth Podcast. And the Moth is a storytelling competition where people get on stage without notes and tell a story, generally a personal story, a narrative. There are a number of different ones. to listen to on the website that I posted. You need to choose one and then summarize the narrative goals as they're expressed in that story off of The Moth. There are a number of great ones. Make sure to look and preview them. Some of them have some pretty colorful language. If it's not something that you want to experience, just look. They're usually labeled whether or not they have colorful language or not. So don't play it out loud. Maybe if there's kids in the room, if it has colorful language, I'll let you guys handle that. All right, that's our week, narratives. Next week you're going to be writing a narrative, your final essay of the semester. And the theme of it is a light bulb story. A story that happened in your life where a light bulb went off. And what I mean by that is not a literal light bulb, a metaphorical light bulb. When did you learn something? What experience taught you something about living, about life, about friendship, about humanity, about anything? I'm sure we have some light bulb moments from this year that we could write. So you can start thinking about that. It's due next week. We'll talk more about that next week. This week we're just enjoying narratives. White Lies, Moth Podcast, reading response, discussion assignment, all due by Sunday. Again, congratulations on getting your research paper done. I wish you all the best and take care.